Piercings and intimacy. We're going to talk about piercings, discussing piercings with your partner, things you should look out for, things you should be concerned about. Coming up next on Body Piercing Basics, episode number 142. For those that are new to the Body Piercing and Tattooing channel, welcome to the channel. Hope you're enjoying the videos. Hope you're finding them helpful and useful and all that stuff. But you might not know who I am. My name is DaVo. I'm a professional body piercer and have been since 1994. I own and operate the Axiom Body Piercing Studio, located right here in Des Moines, Iowa, inside Skin Kitchen Tattoo. Today's subject comes from one of our viewers. A comment that they made. Megan, I believe it's Clements, basically had asked me to do a video on how to talk to your partner about your piercings, things you should look out for, etc. When you get intimate with a partner for the first time, or maybe you have a new piercing and it's the first time your partner's experienced it. Generally, when we think about intimacy and piercings, a lot of people go directly to private piercings or piercings in private areas, things like genital piercings, nipple piercing, etc. However, because depending on what your style of intimacy is, it tends to involve the entire body. It can affect piercings in other areas that we don't really think about. Piercing, of course, genital piercings are going to be affected, navel piercings, nipple piercings, oral piercings, of course, nose piercings and ear piercings. Even an eyebrow piercing, if the person is cupping your head, could be affected by the act of intimacy, especially during the healing process. Of course, first and foremost, you should always understand that piercings, regardless of how long you've been with a partner, no matter how far you are along in the healing process, are completely off limits during the healing process. Contact with the piercing, either oral or just with fingers, can lead to infection. It can also cause trauma and other issues that can lead to problems. So, if you're healing a piercing out, you definitely need to make your partner aware of it and tell them to stay away from it. Now, when is the proper time to talk to your partner about your piercings and intimacy and etc.? My opinion is if you've gotten to a point in your relationships or non-relationship to where you would normally discuss things like birth control and STIs, then it's time to talk about any piercings you have that may not be visible. Be open and honest. Communication is very important, especially when it comes to intimacy. We need to be able to make sure that our partners understand what is on limit and what is off limit. One way of looking at this is you are committing to an intimate act. If you're committing to an intimate act in that area, that piercing can be either off limits or on limits, depending on your choice. It is always your choice. If you have a piercing in an area of your body that you don't want them to have contact with, or you don't like them messing with it, or what have you, make them aware of that in advance. One thing you always have to consider is that your partner may sexualize that particular piercing. It's really common, and it's often a fetish for certain individuals to be attracted sexually to piercings that have absolutely nothing to do with anything sexual, just basically by the look of it. If you're comfortable with that, that's fine. However, it goes back to motivation. Is the person really into you, or are they into the piercings or the number of piercings you have or where you have a piercing? A good example of this is the number of people that the minute they hear that somebody has either genital piercings or a tongue piercing naturally assumes they're good at certain things or they're willing to do certain things that other people are unwilling to do. That is a stereotype, and it isn't true. Now, it's important that if you have an established partner that you discuss your piercing plans with them. It ultimately is always your body and your choice. However, in some cases, this may affect how they're intimate with you and how they interact with you. So it's a good idea to kind of sit down and go, hey, what are the challenges going to be here? Are you okay with this? Does this bother you that I want to get this done, etc.? Now, as far as them giving you consent to get it done, I guess that really depends on your relationship. But the reality is it's always your body and your decision. You should always approach it the same way you would approach if you're changing your birth control or STI prevention. If you're changing methods, it's always a good idea to talk to your partner about this and discuss this and see how that they feel about it and how it's going to affect them and how it's going to affect you and why you have chosen this decision. Negotiation is very important, I think, in any intimate relationship. Open and clear definitions of what's allowed and what's not allowed is always important. I know for a lot of people it might not be very sexy, but in some cases it's kind of like vacations. Sometimes talking about the vacation or planning the vacation can often be a little bit more enjoyable than actually the vacation. So look at it that way. Talking about this and being open and free, you're going to find out a lot of things about your partner that maybe you don't know, or things that may improve what you guys do together. Now, what if your partner is pushing you to get a piercing? I'm not a big fan of this. It really does need to be your decision. Of course, you can be, your partner can say, you look really great with this and be inspired by that. And if that idea still appeals to you and it's your desire to get it done, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you don't have a desire to get this particular piercing, I'm really uncomfortable with that. One thing I usually do is if I get a vibe, if two people come in, one person's getting the piercing supposedly, but the other person's asking all the questions and doing all the talking and everything else, I'm a little leery of that situation because I'm a little it's a little unclear who actually wants this piercing to happen. And in those cases, especially if it's an intimate part of the body, I'll generally take the person getting pierced back to the studio area in private, away from the other person, and ask flat out, do you want this piercing? And if they say yes, then we go ahead and invite the partner back and we go through the procedure. If they say no, I'll usually go, okay, we're going to sit here for a couple of minutes. You can look on your phone or whatever you want to do. I'm going to look some stuff up on the computer, and then we're going to go back out there and tell them that you don't have the anatomy for this piercing. And the reason why I do that, I know it's kind of a white lie, but is I don't want to create any additional tension in that relationship. And maybe, hopefully, me being understanding, etc., can hopefully give that person the courage to go, this relationship isn't working out for me. I need to move on to someone else. I've kind of stressed this already before, but limits, consent, and negotiation are involved even with access to your piercings. Just like any other intimate act of any type, even the fact that somebody wants to touch you or hug you, it should be consensual. It should always be something that is welcomed and something that you're willing to agree to. If you have piercings that you're concerned about, that you don't like people handling, or you're worried about them becoming damaged, or they're during the healing process, it is your right as an individual to deny your partner access to that. That is not an unusual or unnatural or over-demanding thing to demand. That's a flat-out thing. Just for example, if you're not willing to do blah, blah, blah act, you are also able to say, hey, I'm not willing to let you play with my piercings. It's just plain common sense. Always negotiate, always limit, always make it clear. And you always have the power to say no and understand that. Now I'm going to kind of specify some of the things that you need to discuss with your partner and make clear when it comes to healing and healed piercings. First, I'm starting with healing piercings. Be clear that the piercing's off limits. They cannot have any contact with the area. Contact with the area is going to increase the likelihood or risk of infection. The other problem is it can cause the trauma that can lead to bumps, migration, rejection, and tearing. Also, another thing is be concerned about how clean their hygiene is, especially if you're staying at their house. Insist that the sheets are changed. Make sure they're clean, especially if they have pets, because that contact with those dirty sheets could lead to an infection. Now let's talk about healed piercings. Limited contact's always best. Gentle contact, no pulling or tugging or ripping. Anything that's very violent is probably going to cause damage, even in a healed piercing. They're always acceptable to tearing, etc. Attaching heavy things to it will also cause problems, or constantly pulling on it. Listen to your body. If it hurts to do something, you need to tell your partner to stop doing that immediately. Oral contact, gentle, of course, is usually okay on a healed piercing. But be careful. If there is any pain involved with this oral contact, there's a possibility that you cause damage to that healed piercing, and now you're going to have an exchange of bacteria, and that could be an issue. If you're involved in any type of activities where there's a desire to hang things from it or attach things to it, etc., I really don't advise doing that. The problem with that is you have a very, very strong piece of material, usually titanium or implant-grade stainless steel, something that is not going to give very easily, opposed to your flesh, which will. So if you apply undue pressure to that, it can actually tear through the tissue like a cheese cutter, basically just slicing right through. The other thing you want to take into account is that the thicker the gauge is, the more resistance it has, the less likely it is to do that. And how old the piercing is. The more stronger the piercing is, the more you might be able to get away with a little bit of nonsense here and there. But always listen to your body and communicate with your partner. If it hurts, stop. Stop doing it. Time to step away. Another thing that's really common, and I get asked this occasionally with nipple piercings, is clamps and attachments and other things. They don't feel good for most people. Some people like them, some people don't like them. And that's really your own personal preference. But understand that pressure against it and it possibly snagging on the jewelry, if pressure is applied or they're pulled away, can cause damage. So be careful. And like I said before, listen to your body. If it hurts to do something, say, hey, it's time to stop. Let's move on to something else. Well, that's all I have to say on this subject today. If you have anything to add, please put it in the comments. We kind of look at this as an educational community. So if you have some pointers or some things or some experiences that you've gone through in the past, please comment. Till next time, here's hoping all your piercings heal with ease and without a single issue. And if you're in the Des Moines, Iowa area, I hope to see you for your body piercing needs in the future. Have a good day, everybody. Take care, and we'll see you in the next video.